Oh,吓死我了. That was scary, guys. I'm scared. Alright, hey guys. I have decided to do another mess around video to review my V16 Divinity here. Now, personally, I like audio stuff, so that's why I'm going to do this. I've used this IEM for almost a year now, and it's been my daily driver since the day I got it. Unfortunately, it will soon leave me and go to another viewer of this channel. So as for why that's happening, it's because I have gotten my hands on something very spicy and very pricey to replace this. If you're curious, make sure you stick around the channel to find out. Now, one thing I must say is, I really want to do audio reviews, but I also hate doing them, because this is a thing where it's extremely difficult to explain to people how things sound, especially if the viewers don't really have as much prior experience in high-end audio. Now, needless to say, descriptions are all relative to other products around as well and subjective to my own listening preferences. Another thing to note is that this, as of now, is the single most expensive item I have reviewed to date on this channel. So if you guys are scared of discovering high-end expensive things, don't watch the rest of this video. So then, the V16 Divinity is an IEM from Thieaudio, a Chinese brand founded and owned by the audio retailer known as Linsol. I have a Linsol affiliate link. If you guys are gonna buy stuff from Linsol, you should use my link, wink wink. Now, Thieaudio is most famous for their Monarch MK2 IEM, which is now succeeded by the Monarch MK3. I think it's about to release, or it already has released. As far as I'm aware, the first batch has already sold out. The reason for the popularity of the Monarch MK2 and Thieaudio to an extent comes from the fact that it has the highest ranking on Critical's IEM tier list. Now, if you don't know who Critical is, he is one of the most influential people in the audio space. He's a YouTuber and an IEM reviewer, and the measurements aspect of IEMs and headphones was also largely pushed to the forefront of the community by his methods. So if you do any research into audio, you're into audio, you look up stuff, you go watch videos, chances are you're going to run into Critical stuff very, very quickly. So the V16 Divinity here retails for $1,500 US. This is also Thieaudio's flagship IEM, their most expensive one. And it comes from their Voyager series of products, peaking at this, the Voyager 16 here. The 16 is a reference to the amount of drivers inside the IEM. Now, yes, you heard me right. There's 16 drivers per side, right? So 32 drivers in total. It's an all BA setup using drivers from Sonyon and Nolas. And for those of you new to this, Sonyon and Nolas are the main suppliers of BA drivers or balanced diametry drivers for IEMs, and also it's the things that would be used inside hearing aids. Now, the IEM features a 5-way crossover, and it's extremely easy to power, coming in at 18 ohms only and 102 decibels per milliwatt. So this is one of the most sensitive IEMs on the market now, and you can easily use this to test noise floors. Right now still, it can be the Andromeda, the other things, but this is just as sensitive almost. So the IEM comes inside this box. Now, taking it and opening the box, you would have been greeted with the IEMs here, and the cable would have been there. So it would come with a stock cable, some silicone ear tips, foam ear tips, and also interchangeable connectors for the termination on the end of the cable here. So with this, you can just pull off the end termination here, and you can freely change that between your 3.5, your 4.4, or your 2.5 even. Also, there would be this carry case that it comes with, and I am actually using this carry case on the daily. Now, I won't lie, the whole package doesn't feel particularly premium compared to others I've seen, but it's at an acceptable standard. You know, this velvet isn't particularly the nicest to the touch, but oh well. The stock cable feels pretty nice in hand. I actually quite like it. I enjoy thick, heavier cables. Most people don't, but that's just me. However, this cable itself is actually pretty low quality for a high-end IEM. It's quite microphonic, it doesn't sound particularly good, it picks up noise. And lastly, the implementation of the interchangeable connector is known to break. I've seen quite a few reports here and there. So do recommend changing the cable if you plan to get this IEM. Now, stock ear tips are fine, but I think if you guys are getting IEMs like this, chances are you'd probably have a lot of different ear tips that you're using anyway, so you might as well just use those. Now, as for myself, I am using this silver cable that I purchased from Gladiator Cables. Shout out to Antonio. Make sure you guys check him out. I do recommend buying something from him. Now, in terms of fit, So this has the same face shell as the Monarch MK2 and kind of the same design, but because of the way the drivers are arranged inside the IEM, the angle of the nozzle is actually different. So as far as I'm aware, most people actually have better fit here with the V16 compared to the Monarch MK2, even though they look very much similar. So fit-wise, not really a problem at all. Now let's jump straight into the sonic aspects, starting with tonality. Tonality is easily the number one shining aspect of this IEM, in my opinion. So the V16 leans slightly towards the warmer side of neutral, but it maintains an overall balanced tonality. Now, starting from the lower end of the spectrum, the overall bass performance is, well, probably the weakest aspect of this IEM. Now, despite it having some of the best BA bass around, I think this matches the U12T, which everyone goes crazy over about the U12T BA bass being the best. It still doesn't really break through that BA bass limitation, and it doesn't feel as impactful as, say, a dynamic driver bass would be. Now, sub-bass extension is okay, nothing bad, but it's not particularly special either. The frequency response graph looks like as if there's a lot of mid-bass, which to a lesser extent is true, but if you listen to the IEM, it really doesn't slam as hard as dynamic driver bass would, and therefore the mid bass doesn't actually feel like it's that overblown as the graph might suggest. All around acceptable, but definitely not the IEM you should be looking for if you just want bass performance. Go look at like Legend Evo and, I don't know, Fur stuff. Now moving to mids, this is where the V16 takes over. The mids on the V16 can only be summed up as near perfect. In fact, the only other IEM I have tried which I think that have mids that match this or perhaps surpass the V16 would be the Elysian Diva. And the difference between the two being the V16 is slightly warmer, while the Diva is a bit leaner, more towards neutral. Definitely not lean by any means, but compared to the V16 anyway. I must first say here, I am an enjoyer of slightly warmer sound signature, not the leaner stuff. So things that sound full, lush, and smooth, that's what I like. The V16 is extremely standout when it comes to smoothness and naturalism, or timbre. Perhaps one of the best available on the market regardless of price even. Now, this is especially showcased when you listen to any music that involves real things, like proper instruments or human voices, things that actually exist in real life, not electronically produced things. Now, I'm not exactly a professional musician who's played in many bands or things like that, and I can tell minute differences between every instrument and everything. Oh, this sounds wrong, that sounds off. But to my experience at least, when I listen to things through the V16, that's how it should sound to me. When I listen to it, I'm like, that's what that instrument should sound like to me and how I like it. Things from piano keys, acoustic instrument strums, violins or guitars, and even to human voices. The smoothness and naturalism is phenomenal. I can't stress this enough. It's just so smooth. Voices and things just never get grainy, and if you ever hear any sort of graininess come out of this IEM, it's from your track, not the IEM. Now, a bit more on the frequency response aspect. Now, there is a bit of a Harmon-esque peak relative to the IEF neutral at about 3000 kHz as we can see. The entire presence region from about 1.5 kHz to 3 kHz has a little bit of a boost, and some might find that shouty, but I think it really shines when it comes to higher pitched vocals, especially female vocals. One of the things I particularly enjoy listening to is when singers hit the high note, right? They hit a high note and you can feel emotion being let out in a burst as they go on. For example, listening to Halian or Chinese singers like JJ Lin. The upper mids boost really creates an amazing contrast when they're singing in a regular tone, and then the high note comes and they hit the high note, and then you're like, oh my god, like that went loud. You can feel the emotion, you can feel the energy being let loose, and emotions are ramping out. That presence region boost really does give that contrast, and the V16 does an amazing job here. Now lastly, on treble. I'm 23. And I consider myself relatively treble sensitive. The volumes I listen to will probably cause me to be deaf by 30, but as of now, I think my hearing is still okay. And Harman treble is definitely too much for me. Or even IF neutral 2020 treble is still slightly higher than I would like it. I will have to admit though, that this is a region, the treble region entirely, isn't something I'm too experienced in, and I don't really know what I should be listening for. However, the best treble I've ever heard definitely comes from the Elysian Annihilator. many others consider that to have the best treble as well anyway. The V16 treble is smooth and present, but it's not something that particularly stands out. It has just the right amount to give you detail without making the region feel too muted, but it won't satisfy you if you are a person who enjoys that super crispy detail sound or something that gives you a nice crunch. Now, I fiddled around with the EQ for the V16 as an experiment, and I can definitely say that the perceived detail and resolution is a little bit affected by that treble region. If you were to boost the treble by maybe 1 or 2 decibels, you can definitely get a lot more detail to suddenly pop out in front of you. But that's at the expense of perhaps being a little bit more fatiguing. Now, listener volume definitely plays a part into this as well, because I listen loudly, so when I do put that treble, it gets fatiguing. But for the average listener who probably listens a lot quieter, you might want that treble boost. Overall, I am very happy with the treble performance of this, and I can't really complain about it at all. Moving on to text. Now, starting with resolution, the resolution on the V16 is impressive. While it may not sound as detailed as some other IEMs with more of a treble boost to give you that perceived detail, the resolution on the V16 is no slouch. From my listening experience, all details and resolution I can normally hear with other gear is still present in the V16. However, there are definitely situations where it might be a bit more covered up by the bass or the mids. The IEM itself is extremely capable, and that slight EQ trick I was talking about can potentially solve all the problems you have with resolution, if that is something you really do care about. Now, it honestly doesn't even get that much better going up to even higher end IEMs. Separation is also extremely good, which ties directly into perceived resolution. There really isn't much for me to comment here because most products at this point, or this point onwards, everything does it well. You'd really have to struggle and nitpick between specific comparisons and examples to really say that one is better than the other. The staging of the V16 is surprisingly wide for an IEM, but it does suffer the generic IEM problem where there isn't as much depth and even less height. I'd consider the V16 to be more than acceptable for an IEM in this aspect, in the sound staging aspect, but it's still an IEM at the end of the day, and you shouldn't be trying to seek sound staging from IEMs. Now, for IEMs that can give you an impression that they do better sound staging, most of them have some sort of a tuning trick to do that. Think of Mest, for example. But in general, I think this is just as good as any other high-end IEM, and it doesn't really get too much better either. Speed, decay, and dynamics are probably the only tech aspect that I think this IEM lacks a little. Unfortunately, the V16 is not that fast. When combined with the bass being not particularly slammy either, I have to say I am occasionally left wanting a bit more from it in this department. Probably in electronic music, for example. Now, this isn't a deal breaker at all, but there are just others that will do this better. However, there is definitely going to be a trade-off in some other aspect if you got another IEM that can do better speed and decay, or maybe it'll have not as good tonality. The positional audio and gaming performance of this IEM is excellent. I won't say much more here. All you guys need to know is that I have mained this for all my comp gaming since I got them, and they followed me into quite a few LAN events as well. So if that doesn't tell you what they can do, then I guess I really can't tell you more than that. And lastly, we'll go to sources and pairing. I think a huge win for the V16 here is that it sounds good no matter what source you use to drive it. You know, I've LDAC Bluetooth via a BTR7. I've played it off a Mojo 2 being fed by a PC. I've played it off a Mojo 2 being fed by the Poly. I've listened to it on the Bliss being fed by the Qutest, now the FiiO TT2. And out of all of these sources, it still sounds good. And at the same time, it still somehow scales. I initially thought that the V16 would cap out at some point. You know, like if I went to the Mojo 2, then went to this kind of desktop setup, I thought it wouldn't sound that much more different. I was wrong. And moving up along the spectrum has proven me wrong time and time again. Listening to the V16 on the Holo Bliss with the TT2 has made it sound like nothing I've ever heard it do before, and I couldn't really believe that I was still listening to the V16. And so the versatility of this IEM, being able to be fed by any source around, and still sound good, is truly amazing. The only con is that the high sensitivity on this might reveal noise flaws depending on what your gear is, and so the quality of the source matters a lot too. In fact, the Mojo 2 has a noticeable noise flaw on the V16, Not that it's particularly of any bother, but if you directly A/B it on and off, you'll definitely notice that there is a noise floor. The BTR7 is dead silent, however. And funny enough, something as powerful as the Holo Bliss here is still dead quiet, more so than the Mojo 2, which is designed as a portable device. So I have to say, the Bliss is damn impressive. And so that will be the end of my review of the V16. Now overall, this is an IEM that can do any and every genre, especially shining in mids-focused genres. It sounds good out of all sources, and there really isn't just any cons I can think of. Perhaps the only con, as many reviewers have put, is that it's not exactly a specialist in one field. Nothing particularly stand out. But you can also take that as praise towards the IEM, in the sense that it is just good in every possible situation. And if you want something that can be an all-rounder, if you ever need something that's a safe blind buy, something that cannot disappoint you no matter what you do, this is easily one of the top recommendations. Hopefully, I can see you guys in the next video.